All right, good morning, everybody. This is Terry. We're doing our admin study group for sales and marketing applications, and we hit the lead automation, campaign management, and Salesforce content today. And Zach, you are our first presenter, so I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over.
All righty. Let me make sure I've got this here. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Awesome, wonderful. So I think everybody was on the call, but this is something that I'm not quite as familiar with. We don't really use this in our Salesforce org at all. We, believe it or not, don't really use the lead object a whole lot. We're a large financial services company, so most of our agent leads, we just have a different record type on contact. So that being said, I hope this is good content. If anybody says, we use leads all the time and this isn't exactly how that works, please let me know in the interest of everybody doing as good as we can. So here's kind of the different, the agenda, so to speak, to set up web to lead and to set up some of this lead automation things. So there's custom fields, queues, assignment rules, there's some email settings, and then finally enabling web to lead. So first thing is custom fields. So if we're using well, really anything that's going to be converted, but like a web to lead form or something like that, we want to make sure that whatever fields we're using are on both the lead and the contact. So that needs to be set up. I went ahead and just set up in a demo org a current provider field. I populated some pick list values with some auto insurance companies that kind of came up off the top of my head. I also did the same field within contacts. Once you have both both custom fields set up in both objects, you need to then map them. You need to let the the custom lead field, you have to basically give it a place to go to on contact. Same for account and opportunity. However, I didn't do that. It's the same functionality though. So there's just a map lead field. If you go to the lead object manager, you're going to map those lead fields. And you can see I highlighted there, I just chose my current provider lead field to map to my current provider contact field. So pretty straightforward. Anybody who's created a custom field, done anything like that, it's really the same way. Couple things on this that I was researching. It does need to be the same data type. So I use pick list values on this, but whatever data type you're using, it does need to be the same data type. There are like 2 or 3 exceptions to this. I think actually that pick list might be one of them, but basically there are a couple data types that can also be stored as either text or long text. Again, I think it's pick list and 1 or 2 others, but I didn't feel like we probably would need to know the exceptions to the rule for the exam. So by and large, it needs to be the same data type. So that's custom fields. Again, we've all done that before, but really I think the thing to point out here is that once you set up that custom field on the lead, you need to have a corresponding field and then map that field to the corresponding object. Okay, so next thing is queues. You can, to set up a queue, you're just going to go to queue under setup, and what I might do is just pull this up. Hopefully this will be a little bit helpful. But underneath users, we're going to navigate to queues. And here we go. So what I did is I just created a new queue in this demo called incoming leads. It's pretty straightforward. It's just going to be, you're just going to have it just kind of, not a lot to it. It just is something that's sitting there. There's not really rules that are set up around it. There's no criteria in this. It just is something that accepts leads based on the rules that you set up later. So this is probably the easiest step of the whole kind of automation process. I could create a new one if I wanted to. You select any objects that are available. You know, if I wanted to hold cases, for example, I could do that. We're talking more about leads, but it's pretty straightforward. Any questions on that, on setting up the queue?
So take a look at the pick list options under your queue members. There you can connect those to
Yep.
public groups, roles, subordinates, and users.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yep.
Good
Anybody here? So
good to know that.
yeah, users, roles, public groups, or roles of subordinates.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is kind of when we start getting into some of the more fun stuff, some of the more true automation. And the first is the lead assignment rules. You're just going to find lead assignment rules under setup. There's a standard rule that was in place in my demo org. I don't know if that's the case with everybody. I presume it is. One thing that I did learn is that you can only have one rule in place at a time. So you have to just choose one rule. I think of it kind of like, Terry, I remember you mentioning the whole one process builder per object. You know, Salesforce doesn't force you to do that, but in this case, they force you to just have one rule. And then you kind of need to create branches or trees or whatever you want to call them from there. Here's how, well, I put a screenshot in there. It'd probably be a little easier if we go ahead and just pull it up though. So lead assignment rules. So I took my standard one and I just tweaked them a little bit, and I put my rule entries in here based on that current provider field that I had created. Here we go. So I just set current provider equal to the first three values that I put in there, and then what I wanted to do was assign it to my to the queue that I created. So in here, you can assign it to a queue or a user. You cannot assign it to a role or roles of subordinates or things like that. It's just queue or user. So with this particular one, I said, hey, if it's equal to those first three values up here, then go ahead and send it to incoming leads. And you can also set up an email template to send here as well. I didn't create any email templates for this, but that's an option there also. Then from there, you can specify the order here. You know, this last, if the current provider equals Liberty Mutual was the last value that I put in here, then I want it to go to me, so I can assign it to a user. So like I said, you can kind of set these up to where, to anything you have. You could have obviously lots of queues and lots of users, and you can set up as many of these rules as you need to. Any field that is on the lead is something that you can use, filter the criteria for. So if it was a certain country, if it was a certain industry, if it was a certain any custom field that you had created, if there's a certain organization that a distribution partner that maybe somebody is associated with, that would be something relevant to our organization, then you could have a pick list of 30 values, and then it could route to the appropriate person from there.
One thing that I would add to that is, as one thing that they consider to be a best practice, is to always have that final one be kind of a catch-all. So if it doesn't hit one of your other entries, then you have kind of the last entry there that gets it routed to or assigned to at least someone. So RAQ anyway. That looks good.
Okay, so I'm going to put, what you're saying, Terry, is that after this new one, you would go ahead and have a last one that goes to, basically keep all of these blank and have no criteria, and then just go to accuser or queue or whatever it might be.
Yes, yep.
Okay. All right, let's jump back in here. So that is lead assignment rules. Jumping back here, so we went through custom fields, queues, assignment rules. Going to touch a little bit on email here because that's part of part of this whole automation process. a couple of things, really two things that are pertinent here. There's the organization-wide email addresses, then there's also the email templates. So I'll talk about templates first a little bit. That's something that we use at our org because we're really at the very, very, very early stages of switching to Lightning, so we still use classic email templates. Those can be set up either in HTML, they can be set up in plain text. A user can set them up if that is enabled, or just admins can. But you need to have something set up if you want to reference it later. So those email templates, I can access those by just coming to classic email templates. I didn't create any new ones again, just because I just was demoing this. But here's some of the examples that are in the demo org. Anything that can be here, you can see most of these are text. But you can also have someone who is proficient in HTML set that kind of an email up. And then you can also restrict access based on, I believe it's just profile. I don't think you can do it based on role. And then use this here. So let me go back. Okay, then organization-wide email addresses. This is another thing that would be helpful, I think, if you have like a web form and you want it to be sent from a certain, person, from a certain, webmaster at yahoo.com or whatever it might be. I'm going to come to organization-wide addresses, and I can add an organization-wide email address and restrict the profile that can send it. So if there's certain profiles that shouldn't have the ability to send on behalf of that particular email address, I can do that. It's going to help with security concerns. But this is how you're going to set up those organization-wide email addresses right in here. Any questions on the email piece of it? This is more of the email setup piece.
So those org-wide email addresses, what that does is it creates for you one of those, it's kind of like a my email to Salesforce deal where you get one of those really long email address things. And so with that, what I will typically do then is share that with the Exchange or your email service tech person, and associate that to something that's much more generic, like support. Maybe it's Holmes Murphy support.com address as opposed to that ugly long Salesforce email address. And then you just forward things to the Salesforce one. So there's ways to kind of work with those org-wide so that you get a generic looking response to the customer, but you get that ability for those emails to come out of Salesforce or to be able to send them with that. So it's a nice feature.
Gotcha. Okay, good deal. Then we have auto response rules. So these are, similar a little bit to the lead assignment rules. I mean, the setup of them is going to be very similar. You just like the lead assignment rules, you can only have one of these in place at a time, and you're going to have the same kind of interface for editing those. So let's find lead auto response rules and kind of look at those. So this is going to be specific to sending basically an email that's sent out, right? So lead assignment rules are where does the lead, basically ownership of it, where does that live? And then lead auto response rules are going to be, just like it sounds like, any kind of response. So both need to be set up. You can't do both at the same time. You can't achieve both goals with just one of these things. So little test rule here. I already broke Terry's rule of having a catch-all, but I don't know that would be quite as applicable for this, because you might have certain times where an email wouldn't go out. But I just set up a kind of a dummy rule that says that anytime the annual revenue is greater than $10 million, send out this marketing product inquiry response, this template that was already available in this demo org. If I come here and kind of look through the navigation, again, it's very similar. There's a sort order. What order am I going to process this in? Then you've got the same. You can filter by any field, any lead field. But now is when you're going to come in. Now is why you would have wanted to have the template set up. And now is why you would have wanted to have that organization-wide email address set up, because here is where you can specify that. So you can either have it come from yourself or from one of those organization-wide email addresses that is available to that particular profile, to the user's or to the sender's profile.
Yeah, so a common use case for this would be if, let's say you're using a web to lead form on your website, and somebody fills out the form and you want to respond back to them immediately with a "thanks for reaching out to us" type email. This is often used in that type of a scenario. So that's kind of just real quick, just a quick use case. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yep. No. That's perfect. I appreciate it. I think I just mentioned this. I'll say it one more time, but just both with the auto response and the lead assignment, one rule in place at a time. So the auto response works just like the lead assignment rules. Trying to think if there's anything else on this that I was going through. No, I don't think so. Little pause here, and just to I guess this is more for me and anybody else who's kind of looks at these different rules. Both of these are going to fire before a workflow rule. So the lead assignment and the auto response rule, both of those are going to fire before any workflow rule. So if you do have anything set up or any process builder set up that are assigning them based on anything, just be cognizant of that. That, you know, it may, if you have a workflow rule in place, if it's this and this kind of an owner, reassign ownership, something like that, it may be irrelevant because you already have an assignment rule set up. I think very angry admins work pretty efficiently is the little acronym that somebody gave me. So validation, assignment, auto response, workflow, processes, escalation rules.
Nice.
Okay. Last thing here that I have is enabling web to lead. This is a little bit of a black hole for me because I'm neither a web developer nor do we use this in our org. But basically what it does is it gives you a pretty nifty little, Salesforce will provide you with what you, oh shoot, what did I do? There we go. So Salesforce will provide you with something to give to your web developer. So you can create a web to lead form and you can indicate what you need on there. So for mine, I might take my company out. I might put that current provider field that I created in, return URL, Dean.com. I'm going to uncheck this reCAPTCHA because when I tested this, it errored out on me. But if you knew what this meant and knew how to use it, then I feel like you probably should.
Probably should.
Yeah. So, but for here, this is basically what it's going to give you. So you're going to get this code to be able to pass along to a developer. It obviously is not going to just put a form on your website. It's not going to have the ability to do that, but it does kind of give it to you ready to go.
Good.
And that is kind of what I wanted to share. I hope I didn't miss anything on some of these lead automation tools. But does anybody have any question or any feedback? Again, we don't use leads a whole lot in our org. So if there's anything I missed, or jump in.
That's good. Looks good. Anybody have any
Okay, great,
comment
thanks.
on that? All right, I'll let you stop sharing. And Carly, I think you're up next with, was it campaigns?
All right. What's that?
Campaigns, right?
Yes, campaign. Can you I have to hit the share button? There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I forgot what org I was doing this in here. I think I'm in the same tab. So I'm just going to leave it like this here. A lot of orgs going on here. Okay. So I'm going to talk about campaigns. I really wasn't sure kind of what to go over, but I just wanted to kind of do some basics. Campaigns are standard to Salesforce. They're just used to bucket contacts and leads for a variety of reasons. We'll talk about that here in a second. But in order to get to campaigns or to see them, or for users to see and interact with them, they need a full Salesforce license, not like a platform license or any other license type. They need a full Salesforce license, and they need the marketing user checkbox on their user record. And then obviously they need profile permissions to view and edit campaigns. So high-level overview of what you need in order to see and use them. So campaign types. This comes out of the box, Salesforce. It's a standard field on the campaign standard object. Let's see here. There's a lot here, but you can obviously tailor it to what you want to use it for. So I've used campaigns in a lot of different ways, but currently in my current role, we have a very small list of types, just like email and call campaigns, but this is out of the box Salesforce, so you can just customize it and set up like you normally would in Object Manager. Along with campaigns, you have campaign members. So campaign member object acts like a junction object, and allows you to relate multiple contacts and leads to multiple campaigns. I think it's a really good example of a junction. Let's see here. So each contact and lead associated to a campaign gets a member status that you can customize per campaign. So I just have some screenshots of what it looks like in the UI. So I want to get more in depth into the actual setup of campaign members and some other things. So I won't actually demo that in an org. So the campaign member statuses are standard to Salesforce, but it's not done in setup like other pick lists. So campaign member statuses are done on the campaign member status related list inside of a campaign. I was in a test org here, or a dev org, I mean, and I couldn't find it. I was like, why can't I not see it? I just had to add it to the page layout. It wasn't automatically there. I don't know why. I thought that was kind of dumb. And it took me a little longer than I'd like to admit to find that. But I just had to add it to the campaign page layout and on the related list. So in order to edit them, you just go in here and click edit. So if I wanted my responded to be like how we use it, called, we have like a call campaign. I want the campaign member status to be called, and then I want this one to be pending or something like that. I can just change them there. And you can add more and do all of that. Pretty easy. Let me go back here. Okay. There are a lot of ways to add campaign members. This is not all-inclusive. These are the ones I thought were most important to know. You can add campaign members manually, one by one. If you navigate to a contact and go to the related list, the campaign-related list, and again, if it's not there, you need to add it to the page layout. But there's an Add to Campaign button that you can use. You can add campaign members using the wizard in a campaign. So there's an Add Leads or Add Contacts button in the campaign that you can add campaign members that way. You can use a report to add campaign members, which I think is great. You just create a custom report of leads or contacts, and then when you run that report, I think I have one. Once you run a report in this drop-down over here, there is a Add to Campaign button, which is kind of nice. I've already added them to a couple, but you just do it that way. Then I think they'll send you an email when they're all added, which is nice. Especially if you have a lot of campaign members.
Carla, one thing I learned the hard way on that is that contacts needs to be the primary object in that report. So
Yes,
if you
that is
start with
very
accounts and go
true.
to contacts, you are not going to be able to add those. If I've looked around asking myself, where's the button? And then did a little digging and learned that one. So contacts has to be the first object.
I would
That
guess
is a
it would
really,
be
really good point.
for leads then as well. Leads would have to be the primary object if it's a lead. Or I guess it's the only
Yeah.
object if it's a lead record report.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless you have a custom report or a custom object related to leads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to
Yep.
know. Good to know.
Yeah, for sure. And you can add campaign members via the data import wizard. There's 2 ways to do that. There's a manage campaign members button on the campaign, or you just go to the data import wizard and set up and choose campaign members. But the cool thing I thought here is when you go to a campaign and you do the manage campaign members button, it takes you automatically to the data import wizard, and the only option is campaign members. But if you navigate to the data import wizard through setup, you have other options, which I thought that was kind of cool. It limits you down to the campaign members if you go to it straight from the campaign.
Have you seen that
So
happen
that's
anywhere
that.
else?
So they
I don't think so.
I haven't either. That's really interesting. I think they should incorporate that in other areas too.
Yeah, because it's directing you to exactly what you need to do and want to do. I like that as well. And then you can add campaign members via data loader, but you have to know exactly the API names of all the fields. It's not too difficult. You just have to create your own CSV. It's a really manual way to do it when they already give you loads of great ways to do it. It's like a last resort type of a thing, I think, but it's possible. Let's see. I did find add members campaign document in help.salesforce.com. And like I said, my list is not all-inclusive. There's a lot. I didn't know that you could also do it from a list view. So there's that as well. I didn't put that in my list, but you can do it from the list view. So lots of different ways to add them.
If they ask a question on that list view, what's the maximum number you can add to your campaign from a list view?
200, because I just saw that.
200, yeah. and that's because that's the max you can select on any list view to do anything. So 200,
Yes.
only 200 records at a time. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. There's that. I don't know a ton about this, but I just went into setup and I typed in campaign and just wanted to see what kind of settings were available. But campaign influence is something that allows you to measure and report on multiple campaigns that have influenced an opportunity. Hey, I'm like on camera, so please.
Hello.
He wrote me a note. I don't know. Okay, so sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
Campaign influence. It's what happens when you work from home with a kid, right? Let's see here. The associated opportunities, manually or automatically. Okay, so I enabled it in my dev org, and I think what it does is it ties opportunities to campaigns, and then okay, sorry, click around here, get into it. I did a couple here. So I have a campaign, and then I created a couple opportunities. Okay, so this one. Testing a campaign, test campaign, there we go. I created a couple opportunities in the time frame that I set in my settings, which I'll show you here in a second. And it tied those opportunities to my campaign automatically. So then I have the opportunities in my campaign, the value of the opportunities in my campaign. And there's 2 of them I did. So
why
when
would
I created now
that?
this, why would I do that?
Yeah, why would campaign influence be a good idea?
Yeah, I want to measure the effectiveness of my campaign. So what this does is allows me to say that during the time frame of my campaign, I created these opportunities with these amounts, and I can say that my campaign had this much ROI or effectiveness. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. What's the likelihood of a salesperson actually doing that for you if you didn't have this option?
Yes, not likely.
Yeah, not likely.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, I gotcha. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Let me go here to.
As a former salesperson, I represent your statement, Terry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, salespeople will not do that for you, and marketing people will have no ability to capture that return or their potential impact without something like this.
That's true. Yes. So in setup, I did enable this, and then once you enable that, I think the auto association settings are already there, but I set mine to 30 days, so I can limit whether a campaign is influential. And I think the automatic part of it is I got to find my opportunity here, is this field called primary campaign source. This was automatically filled for me. I think that's what happened when I went to a contact and created an opportunity, and this was already populated for me, the primary campaign source. I didn't have to fill that in. It already put it in. I think it was because it reached my, it met criteria. So my campaign was active, and it was within 30 days. So between the maximum number of days between a contact association with the campaign and the opportunities creation date. Yeah, so it's within 30 days. I also think I couldn't find it, but there's supposed to be a related list called campaign influence. I think on the opportunity, and I couldn't find it. I went to try to add it to. So if anybody has more information on that, I totally missed something, but I couldn't find it. Does anybody have any experience with that? Or am I making that up?
I thought it was a related list as well.
I couldn't find it, and I couldn't add it, and I enabled campaign influence, but it wasn't available for me to add it to the page layout, so I thought that was strange.
Okay.
So that's what made me think it was tied to this primary campaign source.
That is a piece of it. That can live without the other, though.
That's what I wondered.
But that primary campaign source, if you don't have the other on, is manual. So it does rely on the salesperson to say, this is the one they said was why they called me. Are they
right? And the campaign.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the campaign influence related list allows you to tie multiple campaigns.
Yes.
To the opportunity. If it's a long sales process, there might be several campaigns that would help with the sale, and then there's special reporting that you can look at in regards to campaign influence. So I'm not going to show it, but I just think the thing to know for a test is that it's possible out of the box Salesforce functionality is that you can tie campaigns and opportunities together and figure out effectiveness of those campaigns. So I was trying to just pull out the relevant information for the exam purposes. So.
Yeah, so an example question might be something like the marketing department is wanting to capture return on investment for their campaigns. What would you set up in Salesforce to enable that? So then you get pick 2 of the 3 or whatever, and that's the type of thing you might run into here. And certainly campaign influence would be one of those. Obviously, you'd have to have a campaign set up. But yeah, that's kind of what I would suspect they would probably ask, is something along that line.
I would agree. And if you had never heard of campaign influence prior to the test, you might not pick that answer. So I would like to just awareness is key, I think.
Yeah.
Because they like to put made up things on tests as well, which is kind of weird. But they'll put made up things on there and try to trick you into picking it. Let's see here. Okay, so there's that. And then I have one other thing. Oh, the other thing I had on my presentation was the setting up the auto association rules, which I already showed you. So I think that's all I have for that.
So let's say as an admin, you have a user comes to you that's in marketing and they're not able to create a campaign. What would you look for to fix that issue?
I would first check if the marketing user checkbox on their user was checked.
Yes. Yes.
That is
Absolutely.
the number one thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And then permissions from there, probably.
Yeah. Good.
Well, and I was going to say too, didn't you say it requires a full license, no platforms, right? We have a lot of platform users in our org. I'd have to check
Yes.
that as well.
Yep. That would probably be my first check, actually, with the license type, and then the marketing user. In that order is what I would do. Yep.
And does a salesperson have to have the marketing user checkbox flagged to add somebody as a campaign member?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think they would be able to use the manual version of the manual way. Can they see the campaign related list?
Mm-hmm.
And then they could click the add to campaign button, but they wouldn't have to have the full marketing user, I think.
Yep, that is correct. Yeah. They do not
Testing
need
my memory. My memory. It's been a while since I've used this stuff.
Carla, what's some creative ways that you've used campaigns other than for the kind of that traditional sending out an email for marketing type thing?
Yeah, I think that American Equity, where I work now, uses it really creatively for call scheduling. So they use it a ton for scheduling outbound calls to our agents. So we created like a lightning component that does that can automatically or manually assign calls to our users in different ways. So it was kind of cool.
Good.
But it really, I mean, it's just a bucket of people, of contacts or leads. So you really can use it in a variety of creative ways if you need to. That junction object, like I was talking about, it being a really good use case for that is just that ability to tie contacts and leads to multiple things is really nice.
Yeah, I agree. And that's to me the key too. I really wish that they would change the name of this object from campaign to just list, because when you talk to marketing people would see this is just a list. It's just a list of people. Right. A campaign is the entire kind of project of getting information out. Yeah, it's your strategy, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now, can you have parent and child relationships on campaigns?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking you could probably create a lookup. I did create a lookup from a lead to a campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a parent field already there that you can use to create that hierarchy of.
Oh, is that what you're talking about? Like, campaign hierarchy?
Yeah.
What is nice about that?
Go ahead.
What's nice about the parent view that exists already? You can go into the parent and see all the children campaign in there with the rolled up value of all the children campaigns. That's pretty cool.
Yes, absolutely.
I was actually going to talk about that and I forgot.
Yeah.
I thought you meant, can you create relationships to the campaign object? I thought that's what you were asking.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. I meant to talk about this and I forgot. So thank you.
Yeah. All right, cool. Any other campaign questions or thoughts for Carla?
Oh, this is a gotcha, but I found this out when I was doing this call scheduler project with American Equity. But you can't, what was it? You can't relate tasks to, You can't relate tasks to leads and campaigns at the same time, which is very strange. I don't think you need to know it for the test, but it was very, very weird. And so I had to create my own lookup field from the activity object or the activity to leads and campaigns. So anyway.
That is strange. Cool. Thanks, Carla. Nice job.
Yep. Thanks.
So I've got Salesforce content And are you able to see my screen okay, by the way? Looks like I'm sharing it, so I'm going to assume I am. All right, so what is Salesforce content? And this is Salesforce's definition. Organize, share, search, and manage all types of fields within your organization. And this is not enlightening. It's like, why is this not enlightening? So just know, this is not enlightening. So if, we'll come back to that in a moment, but the thing that I think of when they talk about content, content is a very specific feature of Salesforce, not to be confused with files, knowledge, documents, or attachments. So all of these are different ways that you can, different places that you can store files. And so I've tried to give a kind of a quick outline of when would you use which one, because while the study guide didn't really talk about these other ones, I think that you're probably going to need to know some of this. So kind of like you, Carla, it didn't really give me a whole lot of guidance. It just said Salesforce content. So I took it a little bit further and went with all different types of files. This little URL up here is a fantastic link that has a lot more than what I'm going to show you, but it's kind of laid out similar to this. So if you want to dig into this a little bit deeper, this was a nice little resource. So with files, files is for sharing and collaboration on files. Content would be publishing and sharing kind of corporate type information. So maybe I have things like sales presentations, and I want to be able to manage those through a kind of a draft and publish them once I am ready for them to be shared broadly. And I can also control who my contributors are for content. Knowledge would be things like a knowledge base. So think of your help desk type documents or customer service documents. And then the documents is to store web resources. That would be things like your logos that are available. And then attachments allows you to associate files specifically to records. So maybe you want to upload some type of a spec document from a client and you want to associate that to your opportunity or something along that line. You might use attachments for that. File size limitations are good to know. 2 gig for files, 2 gig for content, 5 meg for knowledge, as well as for documents, and then 25 for attachments. This was interesting on content. You can have really large files if you upload them via the API. So that I thought was interesting.
Terry, did you see any API specific information regarding the other 4 types?
No. I do believe that is consistent on the other ones,
okay,
regardless of whether you come out at API or not. Version control is one of the things that you can do with files and content and knowledge. You cannot do that with documents or attachments. The documents can be linked to records if it's done as a file. This is actually kind of sort of true for content, and I'll show you that in a second. Knowledge can be associated to cases. Documents are not associated to anything else. Attachments can be. Can you share these types of files with customers? Yes, you can share a file with a customer by giving them a link. Content is also should have been a yes. So I need to fix these. These are both yes. Knowledge is a yes. Documents, no. Although you can sort of make documents externally available. So if it's a logo, you can make that you can add that logo to say a letterhead or something and have it be visible externally. Attachments you cannot share with customers. Can you run reports and analytics on the information? Files, no. Content, yes. Knowledge, yes. Documents, attachments, no. Is it searchable through global search? Yes, and then no's. I think these are right. I hope they're right. If you know that I'm wrong, please tell me and I'll fix it. Is it previewable? That's a new word I made up. It's for files, yes. Content and knowledge, yes. Documents, attachments, no. You cannot preview it. And then can you follow it? So like a chatter file, follow. Yes, with files, you can subscribe to content, which is kind of the same thing, sort of, but different. Knowledge, you cannot. Documents and attachments, you cannot as well. So some good things to kind of be aware of there, because they could throw questions at you with around the various, you know, what type of, what feature in Salesforce would you use if you were setting up help desk files that you needed to be able to share with a customer?
Knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah. If you wanted to collaborate on some files with other users in your organization, what would you use?
You answered it, I think, in that question by saying files.
Files, yeah, because you're using chatter with that one. Yep. So yeah, those are the types of things I wouldn't be surprised to see them ask. That could get a little bit tricky if you're not aware of the different types. So I'm going to stop that. And
real quick question for you, Terry, and Carla as well. I've heard rumblings, and I don't know if this is true, that some of these types are, the long-term plan is to mash a few of them together, like files and attachments potentially, especially with the eventuality that everyone will be on Lightning. Have you guys heard any of that?
Safe harbor, yes. I've heard some of that too.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's incredibly confusing. The fact that documents is not available in Lightning yet, neither is content. So if I come in here and I search for libraries, it doesn't show up. And I was sitting there for a little while thinking, what the heck, where's content? I know I've got access to content in here, where is it? And then it dawned on me, oh yeah, it's not available in Lightning. So same is true with documents. So if I search for documents, I will not see the documents tab here. So I've got to first switch over to Classic. And then remember what Classic looks like, because navigating around this at this point for me is like, it looks like a foreign language almost anymore. So here I do have a content app that I was able to use, and it's got libraries, content, and subscriptions. Also, if I click the little plus button, which is kind of the app launcher, you will see that Documents lives down here as well. So just be aware that if you're looking for those two things, you're going to have to switch over to Classic. To me, that's kind of an indication, Kevin, to answer your question, that what are they going to do? There's some feature sets here with content, and so I'm going to focus on content now specifically, that really aren't available in the other options. Although, kind of maybe they could do a merge of content with knowledge to some extent. There's some similarities there, but they're still different. And so with content, think of it as libraries, and you've got the ability to create, and a library is really just a folder. When you think about it, it's a folder with documents that are linked to or within that folder. But with that library, you're able to control who has access to those documents. So I might have a library here for sales presentations, and I can control then who my members are for that particular library. Also with that library, I can, if I add users to it, I have the ability to indicate what access level I want that person to have. So they can be the administrator, an author, or a viewer. So if you've got staff who you want to be able to contribute to the library, then you want to make them as an author. Otherwise, you would set them up as basically a viewer, which would be read-only. All right, and we mentioned this earlier, but you can subscribe to libraries. You can subscribe to individual content within a library as well. So I jump back here to libraries. If I upload a file or a document into content, so if I do it like a create new, it's going to create for me a file that's in my private files. Really, it's my private folder. And when I go to publish that, that's when I'll be able to then select the library that I want that document to live in. Once I do that, it is no longer private, and it is available to whomever has access to that library. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so done. We're done with that. So that's your libraries. Libraries are full of content. So content is just the actual file itself. So if I look at, what do I want to look for? I'll just pick an image. So when you upload content, it can really be anything. This is just an image file. And you can add tags to that. Tags are similar to like keywords. So it's nice if you're searching for something to be able to have tags associated to those so that you're able to find them easier. So really that is kind of the basics of the CRM content. Now what you can do with that is if we look at an account record, actually we're going to go to contact record. So if we look at our contact object, and this is probably not visible in Lightning. I'm going to go try it though, just because I'm curious. There are two related lists. There's a related content list and a content delivery list. So I can find content that I can associate to a contact. So maybe I've got a sales presentation that I want to share with this particular person. So I can attach that to my contact record. That should show up now in my related list. And let's see, content delivery. I forget how this one works. So content delivery is kind of an interesting one. Let's say you are going to email a document to a contact, but you also want to associate it to your to the record. You can use content delivery to do both of those things. So let's upload a file. We'll just take we'll take this guy. Okay, so that file, I'm going to upload it, and I'm going to allow recipients to view it in the browser. They can download it as a PDF if I allow them to, and they'll notify me when it's ready. And so I'm going to relate it to this particular contact. Go next. And it's uploading the file, and it's creating an online version for this thing. So once that is done, I'm going to have a URL that's presented to me. I'm also going to get an email. And so if I go to a incognito browser, I could share this URL now with my client. And so without logging into Salesforce, I can preview that document. So it's an easy way to be able to share something with a client, share content with a client. And what was weird to me is I didn't find a way that I could use existing content and share it in this same fashion, which to me seemed a little bit weird. I always had to upload it new. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know if I'm missing something. I can tell you in all of the years that I've done Salesforce, I've implemented content once. So it's not highly used. Does any of you guys using content?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I think we have our standard work in there, all the processes and everything.
Okay. Okay. People happy with it?
I would say most of the people don't know about it. It's mostly for the admins that go in there and find something that they didn't know how to do.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. The nice thing with content is it's version controlled, but files are as well. So it is kind of nice to be able to have that capability. And that's all I had on content. So next week, any questions, I guess, on it before I jump into next week? Silence. All right. Next week we have sales and support that we are starting to look into. So case management capabilities. Adam, you're up for that one. Elena is are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, good. I didn't hear what you'd said. I just heard you say something. All right, and then Elena knows she's not on the call today, but she has already let me know that she is aware that she's up to present on case management automation. And then Salesforce Knowledge. Gina, you've got Salesforce Knowledge.
Didn't I switch that with somebody
Oh,
for
that's
November date?
That was later. That was back.
Oh, okay, got it. I'll get on it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So this is kind of a tough topic. So yell if you need some help with it. It's not an easy one.
Got it.
But at the same time, I kind of like Carla on campaigns. I don't think they're going to get overly deep probably in it, but to know what it can do more than probably how it does it probably is what you'd want to look at there. All right, guys, any questions before we call it good for today? All righty, then I will conclude our meeting then for today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.